This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Jyoti Prakash, are you there?
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. Am I audible to
Good
you?
morning. Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So today's topic will be on management methods and techniques. So management methods and techniques, there are both qualitative and quantitative type methods are there. So it is based on the behavioral sciences, that is qualitative methods. So these are very important, definitely will get in your examination. So management methods, number one is organizational design. So how you design your organization and what is the objective of your organization, you have to be very specific and clear. Based on your objective, you have to build up your organization, because in organization there will be a lot of different designs will be there. So if you select the wrong design, definitely you cannot achieve your objective. So before starting the organization, you must know what should be your appropriate design, so that based on that you can get the infrastructure. Based on the manpower, you can bring the manpower and you can make the design perfectly, so that your organization will become successful. So, and time to time there will be a lot of changes will be there in the organization, new techniques will come and new designs will come. So based, you have to modify, you have to shape out your organization in such a form that they have to accept the future new designs also. So that's why organizational design is an important concept in the behavioral sciences. So the design of the organization should be in a perfect with your objective, so that you can achieve your objective smoothly and effectively. And the second one is personal management. So managing the persons is very difficult in any organization, because different people will come and join in your organization, and they with different thoughts, different mottos will be there. So that's why what you have to do is, you have to select the individual, selection, training and motivation. So you have to select the individuals, what qualification is required to work organization. You have to, based on that qualification, you have to select the people, train them properly, so that they can work efficiently in your organization, so that you can work efficiently in the organization, and motivate them. So motivation is time to time giving them incentives, giving them promotions, or giving them some extra, for if they do any extra work, give them extra income. Like that, you have to show some extra income, so that people will get motivated and they will work for that. So for your work, you must know what is the qualification required, and how to select them, and how to train them properly. So training is also most important. So what happened in the last 1 year back, I think I already told you. So Apollo institutions, they wanted almost 50 to 60 MBBS doctors. So almost 100 people came for interview, and they asked different questions, and they asked the people to demonstrate how to measure blood pressure, how to measure temperature, and how to look for pulse rate. How will you see the respiratory rate, and all those things they have evaluated all the almost 100 people, 100 MBBS doctors who are recently passed out. They said that almost 90% of the recently passed out students, they don't know how to measure the blood pressure properly, but still they need people to work in their organization. So what they have done is, those who are having some good theoretical knowledge, they have selected them, they have trained them properly. So 1 month they have given vigorous training, so that they can so that they can be suitable to work in their environment. So they have given training for 1 month to them, and they have recruited all the trained individuals. After selection, they have given training to them, and now they are working efficiently. So that's why, based on the objective, what is your objective? Based on the objective, you have to select the candidates, train them properly, motivate them. So the motivation is nothing but giving timely promotions, giving increments, giving incentives, giving some praise to them, or kindness towards them, or giving some concessions to them. So that make them feel very happy, and they will work for the organization. And division of responsibility, you cannot say that it is not my responsibility. So roles and responsibilities must be designed beforehand. Once you are selecting for assistant professor, these are the roles and responsibilities. Associate professor, there will be some responsibilities. For house surgeon, there will be some responsibilities. For PGs, there are certain responsibilities. So when you design your organization for each individual, there will be separate roles and responsibilities. We are based on their roles and responsibilities, they have to act properly. So there is a good proverb is there, that is elimination of square pegs in round holes. Elimination of square pegs in round holes. So it is not possible to fit the square pegs in the round holes, because the pegs are in square shape, whereas the holes are in round. So if you want to put them, you cannot adjust them properly. You can keep by force or by something or the other, you can keep the square pegs in the round holes, but the thing is that it will not fit properly. That means, like, what they are saying is, if you look at the example, we are not, as doctors, we can treat the patients, we can diagnose the diseases, we can treat the patients, we can do the best to the patient. But when it comes to the administration point, like principal post, it is an administrative post, superintendent post, it is an administrative post, director post, it is an administrative post. They must have the administrative skills also. So if you ask a person who is having good knowledge, or a good doctor, if you ask him to treat the patients, he will treat the patients happily. Suppose if you give him like principal post, director post, or director of medical education post, he may not perform properly, because he is not trained in that angle. He is trained to treat the patients in his particular subject. So his profession is doctor. He is not an administrator. He is not an administration of an institution. So you ask him to become the principal, or if you ask him to become the superintendent or director or some other higher post, if you give administrative post, he cannot do it properly. He may be good surgeon, he may be good physician, he may be good pediatrician, but he cannot do the administration properly, because he is not trained in that angle. That's why what they are saying is elimination of square pegs. That means if you make the pediatrician as the principal of the institute, so he is not trained in administration, so he will become in that round hole, he cannot fit. So it is better ask the pediatrician to continue his profession, and you bring the administrations like MBA hospital administration. Nowadays MD hospital administration is available, MBA hospital administration is available. So they can bring the such people, those who are trained in the administration, and you can keep them administrators. So definitely, because they are trained in that angle, they will bring the results efficiently, and your work will go on smoothly. So that is elimination of square pegs in round holes. So I am trained to teach you in community medicine. If they ask me to become the vice principal or principal, it will be very difficult for me for administration, because I am not trained in that angle, right? So we have to eliminate that square pegs in the round holes. That means if he is fit to that post, you have to select him based on the qualification. So administration post must be given to the person who has done MD administration, MD hospital management, or you can give it to the persons who have done MD hospital administration, like that. So they will do, because they are trained in that angle, they will do the administration properly. Whereas a professor of pediatrics, he has to continue in his profession, so that he can teach the students, he can do research, he can treat the patients, he can do it very easily, because he was trained in that angle. So effective design of health teams. So our teams must be effectively designed. Everybody must have very good knowledge, very good skills. Then the team will perform efficiently, and you will get the very good results. And then incentives. What I told you, to motivate the individuals, you have to give incentives, maybe in the form of like kindness, showing kindness, or giving promotions, giving incentives, extra money, or some other concessions, or extra leave. Based on the performance of the individuals, you have to give the incentives. Then communication. So communication is the most important tool, is a very important tool for success of any organization. For the success of any organization, what is required is communication. Effective communication will solve 90% of the problems. Effective communication will solve 90% of the problems in the organization. So what you have to do is, nowadays we will see doctors are not good communicators. Majority of them are saying that, and it is proved also, that doctors are not good communicators. They are not listening to the patients properly. Just they are listening one or two words, and they start writing their investigations and treatment. So yeah, that is not the good communication. You have to listen properly, and then you have to explain them properly, and you have to explain them how to consume the tablets properly, and how to come for, when to come for follow-up. All those things you have to explain clearly to the patients. So doctors are very bad in communication. There is communication, the doctor and patient, there is bad communication, doctor nurse and nurse to patient. So a lot of problems are there. So to avoid all those things, what you have to do is, you must have a very good communication, very good suitable vertical and horizontal communication channels. In the organization, you have to establish vertical, that means from topmost to lowermost. That is, you can say from director to the undergraduate student. So if any information is there from the director, it has to reach to the entire organization. So it has to come to the principal, director to principal, and superintendent. From them it will go reach to all the HODs to all the associates to the assistant to the PGs to the interns, and then interns to the undergraduate students. So the information has to reach from the top to the lowest level. Then it is called vertical information. And horizontal communication, that means horizontal communication is in between one group, that is among the assistants or associates, among the student group. If the communication is going on efficiently, that is called as horizontal communication. So in an organization, you may get the information from different sources, So all those things you have to gather, and see that the information you have to communicate effectively from the higher level to the lower level, or among the horizontal levels. It has to go on safely and smoothly, so that the people will receive whatever you are saying in a good manner. And then information system. So organization must have very good information system. The function of an information system consists of collection of data, collecting the information from different sources, and then classification. So what you have to do is, you have to classify the information, transmission, and then storage of information, retrieval. Whenever it is needed, you must be able to look into that information again and again, so that you have to store the data properly. You can retrieve it at any point of time. Transformation and display of information, right? So whatever the information you have got, you analyze it, tabulate it, and then display the information to the society, so that it will be very easy for the people to understand what the information is. So information may be of two different types, that is formal information and non-formal information. That is, somebody is saying that from November 2nd, medical colleges will start. And some people are saying that because only first year will start, only first year, that is now they have not written the examinations. Those students who have completed their first year, they are promoted to second year without writing the examinations. So what for them, at least 2 months classes must be conducted. That's why from November for them they are starting that first batch. Somebody is saying that, I don't know. It is not there in the National Medical Commission, or it is not there in the university website, but it is an informal communication, the informal information I am getting from different sources. So from November and December, so those one batch will come, and they will undergo the training for 2 months, and after that in the January they are going to write the first year examinations. That's what the information. It is informal information. It is informal. It is not an authenticated information. You have to be very careful when you get the information. See that the authenticity of the information, whether it is formal or informal. You have to classify it is whether it is a formal one or informal one. Suppose whatever I said is a formal one, that will be displayed in the National Medical Commission website. Previously it is called as Medical Council of India, or it may be the NTR-UHS website, or it may be the NTR-UHS website. So in both the places it is not there. In both the websites it is not there. That means it is an informal information which I got, right? So there are two different. Suppose if this is correct, and definitely it will be there in the National Medical Council as well as in the NTR-UHS website. So that is a formal communication. That is called as formal information. So you have to be very careful. You have to, for every information, you have to see whether it is an authenticated one or it is a non-authenticated one. So you have to divide them like that and see whether it is an authenticity of each and every information, whatever you get. So what this information system will give is, it provides data for monitoring and evaluation of health programs and feedback. So this information system, what it does is, it spreads the information in the society and collects the information from the society. That means it takes the feedback from the society, so that whether your program is going in the right way or not. So it will give the information that whatever objective you are supposed to achieve, whether you have achieved it or not, and to what percent or what percent you have achieved in that program, that will tell you. So feedback will be there in this information system. That will help you. To know that whether you have achieved your objective or not. So feedback system plays an important role in the information system. Next, if you look at the management by objectives, that is MBO. Management by objectives, that is objectives set for different units and subunits, which prepares its own plan of action. This helps in achieving the results more effectively and smoothly. So what you have to do is, you have to plan the objectives and divide the objectives into subunits. Divide the units. Suppose if you look at the university level, their main objective is, by December we have to complete the entire community medicine portion, so that you will be having in January or February, you will be having your examination. In January we will be having some pre-final examination, not in this COVID season. Previously what has happened, so by December we used to complete, as per the university guidelines, the broad objective of university is to complete the portion of community medicine by December 31st. In January 1st or 2nd week, there will be some pre-final examination will be there, and afterwards there will be final examination. So that is the broad objective given by the university. Then when it comes to the college level, at the department level, what we do is, we divide that objective into different small objectives. That is, for me in the PARC textbook, HOD will allot 4 or 5 chapters, and he will allot some certain time to me, like 1 or 2 months to me. So in that time I have to complete my whatever the allotted topics are there for me. I have to complete them. For associate, for assistants, for postgraduates, like that, we will divide the entire syllabus into different subunits, and each individual will try to complete our subunit in a specified time period, so that we can achieve our objective. So if all of them will do unanimously, will complete the portion in our respective time period. So suppose if I was given 5 chapters and I have to complete them within 5 months, if I do it effectively. For another assistant professor, same thing in 5 months, same thing in something like that. So if you all of them work efficiently, divide subunits, divide them correctly, divide the syllabus correctly, and do that work effectively, by December 31st we are going to complete the syllabus for your batch, and we are ready for taking the pre-final examination in the January and final examination at the end of January. So that's what. So you have to divide the objectives and distribute the objectives to different persons, so that they have to work committedly, so that they can reach their goal, so they can reach their objective clearly within the specified time period. This helps in achieving the results more effectively and smoothly. So in this manner, if you work, your objective can be achieved very smoothly and effectively, so that by next year January you will be ready for writing the examinations. So what are the benefits of this management by objectives? You can see, as objectives are given to each unit, this will enable better management, helpful in taking independent decisions for doing their work. So I am given 5 chapters and I have to complete them within 5 months. So I will divide myself. So in 1 month, how many classes I am getting? How to complete these 5 chapters within 5 months? How many classes I am getting for each and every chapter? I will divide total number of classes divided by total topics, and I will allocate based on the topic. I will allocate the number of classes to that, so that I can complete them within the 5 months period. Whatever syllabus is attached to me, I will be completing within the 5 months. I will try to see how many classes are there within 5 months. So what is the syllabus given to me? So how many classes I have to take for each and every topic? Like that, I will divide and see that, because I was given 5 chapters and 5 months of time. Within that time, I have to complete my work. So for me, I will take my own decision how to proceed with that. So that I can complete the 5 chapters within the 5 months. So I can take my decision independently. I can work effectively. So participation of subordinates in decision making will help in improving efficiency and better results. But definitely, if your colleagues are there and they are supporting you very well and they are giving better suggestions than you, definitely you can receive them, you can adopt them, you can follow them, and you can achieve very good results. What are the weaknesses of management by objectives? Work commitment leads to rivalry over the use of resources. Suppose if you are not working together with as a team in a department, definitely rivalry will be there. Suppose one person is working good and another person is not working, definitely he will point him out, and there will be some rivalry and conflicts will be there in the department. It emphasizes short-term goals, long-term goals, and qualitative objectives are not given proper attention. So definitely you have to give importance to the short-term goals as well as to the long-term goals. And finally, what you have to do is you have to give importance to your objectives and see that your objectives are reached at the end level. Its success depends upon the effectiveness of the feedback system. So whatever you do in this management by objectives, so feedback from the society is very important. Whatever the feedback you get from the society, based on that you can modify your objective, and again you can go to the society. So that's why feedback system is very important in the management by objectives. So entire thing, whether you achieved your objective or not, if you want to know, you have to get the feedback from the society. So once you will get the good feedback, definitely you have achieved your objective. Suppose if you get a negative result from the society or negative feedback from the society, you think that your objective is in another direction, so you can correct them properly. You can correct your objectives, and again you can approach to the society, so that your objectives will, your objective or your program will become successful. So these are the weaknesses of management by objectives. And then if you look at the management methods and techniques, that is quantitative methods. So once again I will go through the qualitative methods, which are very, very important. Definitely it will be asked in your examination. So if number 1 is organization design. So organization design must be perfect to suit your objective, so that whatever infrastructure, manpower or money or time or you are spending in the organization, it must be effective and you must reach your objective, right? And periodically you have to you have to restructure your organization depending upon the needs of the people, or changing the structure of the society. Depending on that, you have to change your organization. And then personal management. So personal management is very important. That means you select the persons, train them, motivate them, see that they will give they work 100% for your organization, 100% for your organization, and get the objectives whatever is desired by you. And for each individual, you have to give the specific roles and responsibilities. That is most important. Giving specific roles and responsibilities to individual, so that if you don't give any responsibility, they will escape from their work. They don't work any. They don't do any work. So, and the elimination of square pegs in round holes, effective design of health teams, incentives you have to give time to time. That is most important. Otherwise, they will get bored and they will leave your job and they will search for another job. Then communication system, you have to develop good vertical and horizontal communication systems. Then information systems must be very good. Management by objectives. So these are the qualitative methods, or behavioral sciences, or qualitative methods which are effective in achieving the objectives. Now we will go into the quantitative methods, management methods and techniques by quantitative method, that is cost benefit analysis. Cost benefit analysis. So that's why cost benefit means you are putting 1 rupee in a program. You are putting 1 rupee in a program, and you are getting at the end of 1 month, you are getting 100 rupees out of it. You are putting 1 rupee investment. At the end of the month, you are getting 100 rupees as a profit from that program. That means your investment is only 1 rupee and you are getting 100 rupees. That means 99 rupees you are getting as a benefit, cost benefit. So monetary benefit, I can say that you are getting monetary benefit of 99 rupees. So you remove your investment, that is 1 rupee, you are getting 99 rupees benefit. That is, I am expressing the benefit in terms of money. I am expressing the profit in terms of money. That is called as cost benefit analysis, right? So I am investing in constructing a medical college. That is, I am investing 100 crores. At the end of 5 years, I want to calculate how much I got. So at the end of the 5 years, after completing your MCA rules and regulations or permissions, so if you get 1000 crores, so 900 crores is your gain. So like that, I'm expressing everything in terms of monetary, in terms of money. That is called as cost benefit analysis. Cost benefit analysis. Cost benefit analysis. So if you see, if you look at the power stations, what they are doing is they are installing all the infrastructure, and they are generating power from the dams. From the dams, they are generating power and they are selling it to the people at the rate of 5 rupees. So for them, it is costing only 50 rupee, 50 paisa. For the government, the actual cost for the production of a single unit of power is only 50 to 75 paise. But for the people, they are sending for the people, they are selling it at 5 rupees per unit. That means 4 rupees 25 paisa is a gain for the government. 4 rupees 25 paisa per unit is the gain for the government. So that is cost benefit analysis. So they are spending 45. They are spending 75 NP for generating 1 unit of power, whereas they are selling it to the people at the rate of 5 rupees per unit. That means the benefit which they got is 4 rupees 25 paisa per unit. They are getting the profit. That is called as cost benefit analysis. So the economic benefits of any program are compared with the cost of that program. So how much you are putting and what is the income you are getting from that program. So whatever is the economic benefit, you are going to compare with that. So benefits expressed in monetary terms will give an opportunity to select the best out of several alternate programs. That is simple. If you are getting if you are putting 10 rupees and you are getting 5 rupees as the outcome, you don't like that program. If you put 1 rupee and you are getting 10 rupees out of it, you like that program because you are getting 9 rupees as the profit. So that's why you for choosing the alternate programs, cost benefit analysis is the best one. The drawback of this is sometimes it is difficult to convert indirect benefits into monetary benefits. sometimes it is difficult to convert indirect benefits into monetary benefits. So every time we cannot express the benefit in terms of money, or in every time we cannot express the output in terms of money. This much gain, this much amount of money I got, this much for after doing this, after investing this much, I am getting this much. Like that, every time it is not possible to explain. For example, I will give you interventions like environmental sanitation give indirect benefits. Suppose if you are putting 10 rupees for environmental sanitation, for cleaning all the surroundings, so indirectly it is a lot of benefit to the health of the people. You are preventing protecting the people from different diseases, vector-borne diseases, from the mosquito nuisance, when you are from the vector-borne diseases, and from the contamination of the water, soil and air. So there are so many benefits, which indirect benefits, which you are getting out of that environmental sanitation. Its benefit you are representing in terms of lives saved or diseases prevented. So if you do the environmental sanitation, you are protecting the society from vector-borne diseases. You are protecting the society. The benefit is in terms of protecting the population from different diseases. That is the indirect benefit which you got. You cannot express that in terms of money. If you express anything in terms of money, that is called as cost benefit analysis. If you are not able to express benefit in terms of money, that is called as cost effective analysis. We will go to that. Now we will see the cost effective analysis. So here, cost effective analysis, what is happening is the benefits are expressed in terms of results achieved. So what is happening is cost effective analysis, what we are doing is whatever the benefits we are getting or whatever the profit we are getting, that we are expressing in terms of results achieved, not in terms of money what you got. If you express the results, or if you express the output, or if you express the profit in terms of money, that is called as cost benefit analysis. If you express the output in terms of results achieved, that is called as cost benefit and cost effective analysis. You can see number of lives saved from the disease. There are two ways in which analysis may be done. That is different. I will give you one example. Suppose if you are investigating, suppose if you get the corona vaccination, suppose per vaccination it is 500 rupees. So to immunize entire country, it may take a lot of crores. Thousands of crores are needed to immunize the entire country. So what is the benefit you are getting out of that? Whether you express it in cost benefit analysis or you express in cost effective analysis, what is the benefit you are getting out of this investment? You are putting thousands of crores for immunizing the entire country against COVID or corona. So what is the benefit you are getting? So the benefit you are getting is you are protecting, you are saving number of lives saved from the disease. Number of lives saved from the disease. You are expressing the benefit in terms of number of lives saved. You are going to save the entire country from corona or COVID disease. That is cost effective analysis. Cost effective analysis. If you are, because in medicine, whatever the program you take, investment will be there. Investment will be there in terms of money, and output will be there in terms of number of lives saved or number of children protected from vaccine preventable diseases, from different diseases, number of accidents prevented, number of lives saved. Like that, you are going to express the results in terms of number of lives saved or number of people protected from accidents, like that. So that's why majority of the national programs are cost effective programs. They are not cost benefit. That is, they are putting 1,000 crores. They don't, at the end of the day, they don't, at the end of the year or at the end of the program, they are not going to get to 1 lakh crores. They are going to save the people through the programs, and they are investing money into that program, and they are going to save the people from different diseases. So that is called as cost effective analysis. Cost effective analysis. Cost benefit means the profit must be in terms of money. There are two types. There are two ways in which analysis can be done. That is the fixed cost approach, fixed effectiveness approach. A system which gives more units of effectiveness for a given rupee is more efficient. So if a system for fixed cost it is giving more results, then it is a more effective one. And if it is a fixed effectiveness approach, that is a system which enables the attainment of effectiveness at a minimum cost in terms of rupee is more effective. So these are the two approaches, that is fixed cost approach and fixed effective approaches are there. You can see where you can apply this cost effective analysis, that is in the malaria eradication program of savings in recurring deposit necessary for control program, heavily titled the decision in favor of eradication program. It identifies useful technology, drugs, treatment regimens, better healthcare delivery systems. As it identifies the effectiveness of each program, by applying this, we can use resources for better program. That is with the effectiveness. So that means for a mixed for a minimum cost, if you get maximum results, you can say that that program is working effectively, and we can continue with that. And the next quantitative method is the cost accounting. It provides basic data and cost structure of any program. Cost accounting means to avoid the duplication of the data, or avoid spending unnecessarily on different items, different resources, spending amount different resources unnecessarily. So it provides the data. So cost accounting will provide the data and cost structure. So how much is the for each step, how much money is required, and what is the output of that step. Like that, if you calculate for each and every step, so that you can minimize the cost of that program sufficiently. That's why it has three important purposes in health services. Number one is cost control. So every step you plan, for this step how much manpower is needed, how much infrastructure is needed, and how much time is needed. So within that, how much money is needed. So how can we reduce the money in that particular step? Like that you try to analyze each and every step and see that how much expenditure you are putting in each and every step. So once you get the idea of how much expenditure is happening, or how much budget is needed for each and every step to run that particular program, then you can plan where we can get down, we can cut down the resources, where we can cut down the budget. We can plan it properly and see that we can control the cost of that program properly. That is called as cost control. Next one is planning and allocation of people and financial resources. It is not that easy. For every step we need people, we need infrastructure, we need money. So these three things at each and every step we have to plan very carefully and see that if we effectively you have to utilize the resources effectively at each and every step. Pricing of cost reimbursement. So whatever cost is there, how much it is happening, and how much you can get out of that, how much profit you can get from that program. That also you have to see. Reimbursement, cost reimbursement, that means how much you can get back from that program. That also you have to look into that. That is pricing of cost reimbursement from that program, you have to calculate. So this is called as cost accounting. Cost accounting is nothing but is the cost structure of any program. It is a cost structure of any program at each and every step. What is the manpower needed? How much is the manpower needed? How much is the money needed? How much is the resources needed for that particular step? So you have to account it and see and calculate it, how much it is happening for each and every step. At the end of the program, you have to calculate and see whether the budget is sufficient for you to run the program or not, or where at what point of step or at which step we can reduce the cost of the program. That you have to calculate. That is called as cost accounting. Then next one is the input output analysis. That is input output analysis. You can see input refers to all the health activities which need resources like man, material. So next one is the input output analysis. That is, input means how much input you are putting in a particular program. Input is nothing but input of resources into a particular program. Resources is nothing but manpower, then money and the infrastructure, how much is needed for a particular program, how much you are keeping, and output means how much you are getting out of that, how much work output you are getting for a single input, how much output you are getting. So that is the input output analysis. So how you are going to do that? So input refers to all the health activities which need resources like man, material, money and time. So all these things you have to put first, and then you have to wait for the time to come the output. Output refers to the outcome that occurs due to interventions like cases treated, saved. So for any program, the outcome will be in terms of number of lives saved, number of children saved from prevented from different diseases, number of accidents prevented, like that you will get, or number of cases treated. So this all outputs will be there. An input output table shows how much of each input is needed to produce a unit amount of each output. So you have to put input and output table and compare both of them. So for how much input, what is the outcome? How much is the output? So you compare both of them and see whether you are getting a reasonable output or not. What for each input, what is the output? Whether it is reasonable or not, you have to look into the statistics and you have to see whether you have achieved your objective or not. It enables calculations to be made of the effects of changing the inputs. So if your output is not good, even though your input is good, output is not good, you have to change. You have to modify your objective and see that extra output must be kept. My extra input must be get to see that the output should be good. So monovalent vaccine, then triple vaccine. So many things. So initially they started with monovalent vaccine. So whatever they are giving, then they went for triple vaccine, triple vaccination. That is good. That is giving very good output. That is giving very good output. That's why they went for triple vaccination. Then model selection, that is also very important quantitative method. So whatever the suitable model is there, you have to modify that, or whatever the success model is there in the entire country, you have to look for the models. Whatever the successful model is there, that you have to implement, that you have to modify according to your needs, according to your area and situation. Then you have to implement the same thing in the society, so that you can get the very good results. So model is nothing but an abstraction of the reality to understand how the factors in situation affect one another. So what are the factors favorable for the positive outcome, and what are the factors not favorable for the positive outcome? You have to study. You have to study the models properly, designs properly, and you have to set up the successful models so that your organization or your program must run successfully. The next one is system analysis. So what is this system analysis? It is essentially to find the cost effectiveness of the available alternatives. So whatever the alternatives are there, then you can go. It is essentially to find out cost effectiveness of the available resources. So initially, if you look at the RNTCP, that we are having a lot of treatments for 1 year and 2 years, like that. Treatments for 1 year and 2 years. After that, they have done the operational research and the system analysis and the cost effective analysis and everything, and they have brought the dots into force. That is, they have reduced the treatment duration, that is from 1 year to 6 months, 6 months and 8 months, like that. The system, you have to do the analysis and see what is the alternatives available, and cost effective also. Outcome must be very good. So like that system analysis you have to do. It helps the decision maker to choose an appropriate course of action by investigating problems, searching out objectives, So system analysis, it helps the decision maker to choose an appropriate course of action by investigating problems, searching out objectives. So you have to investigate the problems and searching for different objectives and see that the analysis will become perfect. Analysis must become perfect. That is system analysis. So it is system analysis, nothing but it is essentially to find out the cost effectiveness of the available resources, available alternatives. Then if you look at the network analysis, so it is very important network analysis. So the important components. So it is the basic principle is to show diagrammatically the logical sequence in which different events necessary between start and the end of a project need to take place. So from the beginning to the end of the project, so what are the different events necessary between the start and the end of a project to take place? That is, suppose if you want to construct a medical college initially, so hospital, they have to construct different departments, they have to construct at the same time they have to recruit the doctors, and they have to go for MCA permissions. Like that, what are the different levels? Those must be shown through a diagrammatic way. That is called as network analysis. So what are the important components? Are activities, events, duration of activity, paths, and slack. So what different methods are there, different activities are there involved in that, different components. You can see number 1 activities, 2 events, third one is duration of activity, fourth one is the path, and fifth one is the slack. So in network analysis, there are 2 different methods are there. Number 1 is PERT, that is program evaluation and review technique. The essence of PERT is to construct an arrow diagram. Diagram represents the logical sequence in which events must take place. An event is defined as a point in time which signifies the accomplishment of a specific task necessary for the completion of a project. That means event means from the beginning to the end of one activity, which signifies the accomplishment of a specific task. The main emphasis is into the events into the time-bound manner rather than activities. So if you look at the PERT, that is program evaluation and review technique, it is useful in planning, scheduling, and monitoring of the project. It allows better communication, that is communication will be good from, it has both vertical and horizontal communication, identifies potential problems at any level of point, because your arrows are there, you are guiding with the help of the arrows at any point of time, at any place. If you get any problems, automatically you can identify them, you can monitor them, you can solve the problems easily. Use continuous timely progress reports, because you are doing the monitoring, definitely will get the progress report immediately, and you can adjust them according to the program. So for example, if you look at the PERT, starting of a new medical college or hospital could be accelerated by this technique. See, this is most important. This one I want to show you. Decision to start measles vaccine. First, the decision is they want to start the measles vaccine. So identification of the staff, establishment of surveillance, then knowledge of public perception, availability of funds. So this local epidemiological information. So this they have started initially, these 5 components. So straight one is local epidemiological information, then identification of staff, establishment of surveillance unit, knowledge of public perception, availability of funds. So everything they have monitored. So establishment of surveillance to monitoring, evaluation, and feedback system, then development of training material, then train to staff, public acceptancy, then program vaccination, development of health education material, availability of vaccine, then vaccination program, establishment of cold chain, availability of funds, then establishment of cold chain that will give to availability of vaccine, that will give to vaccination program. See, so every activity is represented through a arrow. Suppose if there is a problem, the identification of the staff, so immediately we will get the information. Again, decision to start the measles vaccine, so to there they will get the information that identifying the staff is very difficult, so they will choose for alternate system analysis, and so that they can identify. Then training, suppose if there is any problem, immediately they will get the information, they will do the separate alternative for that, so that it will be completed in the time. So it is almost 11:30, so I will stop here. So I am considering everybody is as present.